Test, 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 test.
Meet Rob Nelson, talk show host.
Because you got the 70s thing going there. I got someone's underwear.
Robert Kennedy, thanks for taking a minute. Simple question.
Tucker?
It's good to see you. Listen,
You're a Bitcoin maximalist. You're Bitcoin forever.
I hate this central bank digital currency.
Hey, I don't have all the answers, but together, I know we can find them.
hey everybody, happy Friday. Welcome to Rob Nelson Live. I am not wearing my signature black today. My microphone though, see how it comes in and goes out? It's like do, 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 do. I am not wearing signature black today. I am, okay, this microphone's going to kill me. it's the microphone and the green screen. No, it's here. Now you see it, now you don't. I'm going to move it over here. There you go. Now it's going to be right in my face. Nice, right. Powerful statement alone. Because it's Friday, because I want to wear something different. I mean, I always wear black. That's my thing, right? I wear black. That is what I do. Oops. Wow. This is what I do. Just put the mic over here. Okay, dokey. Let's try that again. Yeah, I'm going with blue. Not that I'm blue, but it is Friday. And I just thought I'd mix it up a little. You know, kind of go country blue. Country, you know, I'm in Nashville. You know, kind of country style blue. So lots to talk about. It's the end of the week. Those of you who tuned in on Wednesday, and those of you who saw it on replay, and those of you who will eventually see it, was sort of my treatise on the looming civil war, the cultural civil war that we are entering into, the political civil war that we are already in. You could argue we're in cultural and political already, but we're about to go next level with these things. And the looming actual, when I say political civil war, I don't just mean two sides divided, left, right, Democrats, Republicans. I mean an actual political civil war where the country literally divides. Secessionism, the whole deal. Not necessarily involving violence, simply an actual severance, a legitimate political civil war where there is a rejection of the authority of the traditional federal government and the emergence of a secessionist government, of a collective government of those who are collectively against the authority of the central government as it stands. That does not inherently mean it's violent. Although, as I said on Wednesday, and I encourage you to listen and watch, it is likely to lead to violence when one side or the other controls enough of the digital infrastructure, the AI, the data processing, the ability to hamper, eliminate, deteriorate the communications and the economic well-being of the other side of that war, whether that's the establishment, the traditional mainstream existing federal government, or the secessionist government. Whichever one controls that power to influence, utilize data, control information, weaponize that, not with guns, but weaponize that, and to actually impede and harm the other side's economic well-being and undercut it, that's when it risks the likelihood that it leads into a violent conflict, which again, there's a movie called The Civil War. It doesn't set it up that way. It doesn't really explain the whole setup to everything. It sort of implies it, but But again, a civil war doesn't have to be violent in this era, but it likely becomes it when one side dominates the other side enough to cause it irreparable economic harm, informational loss, the ability to communicate, to damage its infrastructure, both its economic, its military, and its informational infrastructure. In any case, I laid out a lot of reasons why we're heading toward that. I'm just going to add a few more in today. Happy Friday. So Bruce Harrell, the incumbent mayor of Seattle. Bruce Harrell is a liberal. I wouldn't go as far as to say, I'd say he's a progressive. His management of Seattle is not, in my mind, been very good. It's certainly led to an enormous number of problems. The wealth disparity continues to grow larger. The homelessness problem is massive. But he was a progressive still inside the kind of the tent of the traditional Democrats. He lost his reelection bid, very close race, to Katie Wilson, who's a community organizer. She's a Mandani Democratic socialist, self-proclaimed socialist. So we now have two of the biggest cities in the U.S., New York and Seattle, who both have just elected, not left-leaning mayors. That's nothing new. Not progressives like AOCs, full-on Democratic socialists. They do not identify as capitalists. They are Democratic socialists. Think about that. They essentially fundamentally believe in a premise similar to, from each according to his ability, to each according to his need. What you need should be provided. What you can give, you must give. If you are rich, you give. If you are poor, you can take. And it goes beyond that simplistic an argument. I mean, it's essentially a distribution. The government controls the means of production, controls the distribution of wealth, controls price controls, removes certain costs on things. We've always seen there's regulators in capitalism that do that. It's the anti-monopolyism. It's sort of saying you can't price gouge with certain things. It's sort of saying you can't, well, yes and no, because the insurance companies price gouge every day, right? That's why we have a healthcare crisis. They just jack up the premiums. This whole battle with the closing the government, which, by the way, government's open. What did the Democrats get for it? 0, nil, nothing, nada. They literally shut the government down for 46 days and got nothing. Oh, no, they got the right that the furloughed workers get to come back and get paid. Well, there were no furloughed workers before they shut it down. So they basically got nothing. Nothing. Same deal on the table 46 days ago. Open the government as is. We'll negotiate healthcare subsidies. And in the Senate, we'll promise to put a vote on the table. In the House, no promise we'll even vote on it. Democrats aren't wrong that there is a healthcare crisis in this country and that premiums are off the charts, astronomically too high and going up. It's just the subsidies were meant to be temporary. They were during COVID, and all they did was jack up the money and make the insurance companies rich. As long as the government, meaning us, was paying for it, insurance companies just kept raising the price. So you technically don't have to pay unless you have a good job and make enough money. Then you just pay out the ass. But otherwise, we'll subsidize you. We, the taxpayers, we, the government, will subsidize you so the insurance companies can jerk you off and make a ton of money. Isn't that to subsidize you for the actual cost of your health care? It's a complete jack up of the prices. I've said before, I know doctors who do private practice, surgeons, whatever, cosmetic surgeons, you name it, dentists, dentist might be a sidebar one. Surgeons of all kinds, doctors who have outside private practices are encouraged to come into a hospital and double, triple the cost of what they would charge the person to do it in their own facility. Why? Because the hospital makes money, bills it off to the insurance company, bills it off from the hospital, off the doctor. The patient pays double, triple. I've heard the doctor say to me, I can charge them 1/3 of that and do the same service in a perfectly adequate environment. That's the insurance companies. So when it comes to regulating prices, the insurance companies aren't doing it. And I will note, I don't hear Mandami or Katie Wilson or any of the Democratic Socialists, or for that matter, any of the Democrats in Congress or the liberals or the progressives, talking about how they're actually going to fix healthcare. I hear them talking about putting more money to subsidize the high premiums that insurance companies charge people. And yes, the insurance companies are raising them and raising them and raising them. Even now, as we speak, they're going up, 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 up. So when the premiums go away, the subsidies go away, the premiums keep going up. Who's talking about telling the insurance companies enough is enough? You don't get to just keep screwing people over. You are literally fucking the American people. I said it. There it is. The nice big F word everybody likes to use. No, they're screwing the public, and they just rake in the money. They raked it in during COVID. They're raking it in now. And all continuing the subsidies would do is continue to push an enormous billions of dollars to the health insurance companies so they can keep raising the prices, going, well, Joe and Sally aren't actually paying much more than they were, which was already too much for crappy healthcare with a massive deductible. But hey, that's okay. We're going to double the price because the government's going to pay it for us. Not a good solution. Bottom line, Democrats got nothing. Healthcare is a mess, and nobody's really proposing on the right either. The exception, I will say, Donald Trump and his create a sort of be your own CEO and negotiate your own health insurance. I would love that. I get to go in and negotiate my own benefits and what I get and what I pay case by case. Right now, you can't do that. You just got to buy a plan. So, but that's one step. I mean, the health industry is out of control. They're not focusing on that, but that's a big, big sidebar. I just weaved away. I'll weave back. Katie Wilson wins, the second major U.S. city to have a Democratic Socialist mayor. This is the Civil War I'm talking about brewing. And of course, in traditional political fashion, Mayor Harrell said he spoke to her, congratulated her, his team standing by, quote, to help with the transition without hesitation. That's the other part I don't get. I mean, Harrell and Katie Wilson are not as far apart as, say, Biden and Trump. But, Biden calls Trump like, the destroyer of, the bearer of doom, the destroyer of all worlds, the end of democracy, the republic's falling apart. And Trump wins the election and, Biden, sits down and congratulates him in the Oval Office, welcomes him in, says, welcome home, Donald. Do you actually say that to a person who you think is going to destroy everything you stand for? Someone's going to literally someone's going to burn your house to the ground, kill your family, destroy everything you care about, all of it. You go, welcome in. Good job. No, you're like, I'd rather die. I'd chop my balls off before I fucking tell you that. But that's politics. However, he said the quiet part out loud. I feel good about the conversation, and I feel very good about the future of this city, of this country still. That's the quiet part out loud. Feel very good about the future of this city and of this country still. Because I can understand why you might be worried about the future of this city and this country. Wilson operates a nonprofit, the Transit Riders Union. So minimum wage, better access to public transit, affordable housing. These are all core issues in these big cities and in small cities. I mean, they're core issues everywhere. Interesting, like the backstory of her, worked basically like, on the, barista, boatyard worker, apartment manager, baker, construction worker, did a little of everything, legal assistant. Now here's where it gets interesting. Like Lindami, who comes from a wealthy family, her parents have money. They send her a check every couple months to pay a couple $1,000s a month for her kids' healthcare, kids' daycare costs. So, every couple months they send her a check. So basically, they're giving her a couple $1,000s a month subsidy, which is awesome. It's her parents giving it to her, which, again, she comes from money, easy to imagine it. Hard to imagine how you give everybody that and who pays for that, because everybody doesn't have a wealthy parent. She graduated from high school and studied physics and philosophy at Oxford. Awesome. Here's the catch. Her parents paid for it. So she left Oxford debt-free. She doesn't deny they paid for it. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just recognize you had a wealthy family, as did Mandami, who could pay for you to do things. So it's easier for you to imagine taxpayers just pay for everybody to do things. Unfortunately, it doesn't actually work that way. So many socialists throughout history came from wealthy, privileged backgrounds. It's like you're just living in the clouds. Like, I'm not against, I want everybody to have a good standard of living. I worked with inner city kids and families struggling, suffering. It's a mess. I always would look and go, how do we get investment in these communities? They have no options, you know? I mean, their choices are so limited. Their schools suck, you know, their housing sucks. Their role models, for the most part, suck. A few get out. How do you invest and build these communities? That is a legitimate thing to want to do. I just don't think the solution of just give everybody everything for free solves it. And I think the great social experiment of the 1960s and Lyndon Johnson kind of proved it. Public housing turned into places that got trashed. People didn't respect it, didn't take care of it. Poverty continued to just bubble up in it. And the properties fell apart and the communities went down the drain. I mean, it's his oldest story in the book. Back to my Civil War. Wilson pledged to, quote, Trump-proof Seattle, as will Mandami. This is the beginning of the political Civil War. The progressive wing, as I said, the leftists will take control slowly of cities. And ultimately, I think there'll be some kind of a financial crisis issue, and they will take control of the federal government, both houses of Congress and the White House. And at that point, you will set in motion the train for the mass exodus of those who do not want to any longer even give legitimacy to that government and its plans. A democratic socialist government dictating where our money gets spent, what we can do with it, what we're allowed to buy, you know, providing free everything to everyone. Again, I'm not against giving people resources, but just everything free, take from those who have it, confiscate their wealth if necessary, direct control. There's an information control element to this, you know, and slowly erode what they think of as their traditional American values, rights, privileges. They will begin a secession. We're on the way to that. I want to be wrong, but I'm not. I mean, maybe I don't want to be wrong. Maybe that's what we have to do. Maybe sometimes things just have to hit the fan and go boom for it to actually move forward. But Wilson, like Mandami, wants government-run grocery stores, and she got endorsed by the union, the grocery union. It's like the biggest private sector union in Washington. And of course, all the traditional things: environmental justice, equity, housing affordability, progressive tax reforms, homelessness. Is not going to remove homeless encampments from the city. None of these things are inherently, not removing homeless encampments is not a good idea. It degrades the quality of life, and it doesn't actually help the homeless, who they call what do they call them? They're not homeless anymore. They're home free, or what do they call it? Not homeless. You're whatever. You're unhoused. You're unhoused. So you're unhoused, not homeless. What the heck's the difference? What's environmental justice? I mean, I know someone could tell me, but I mean, what does that even mean? Equity, this random word thrown out there. Housing affordability is important, but how you address it's the key. See, progressive tax reforms. Again, that just means we technically have a progressive tax system in the U.S., the federal tax system, and it's not. I've always said it's regressive. The rich pay less because they can afford to get around it. I remember Stanley Druckenmiller, the billionaire, telling me years ago when I was doing my political stuff, when Clinton raised taxes, he would spend whatever it took on lawyers to not pay the additional taxes. Even if he spent as much as he would pay in taxes, he'd spend it on lawyers not to give it to the government. Rich people can get around taxes. Poor people get the minimum amount of taxes. They don't get a lot for it, but they get their burden way, way down. The middle pays a disproportionate share compared to what they get. So it's not really progressive. The top end gets off easy, even though they say they're being taxed an enormous amount. I'll never buy that. They are, but they also get around it. Most rich people get around paying a lot of taxes. They still pay, but they're making a fortune. Poor people get around paying too much. The middle gets screwed. It's not a progress. And that's the middle is who will be the divide that pulls away. It won't just be a bunch of rich people going, we're out of here. Rich people can afford to survive almost any system. It'll be the middle. And poor people going, well, I'm getting benefits. I'm getting free rent, better groceries, can sleep on the subway. I'm good. It's the middle, the massive middle that will ultimately, the mega, but it won't just be the right who will ultimately, it will include the left, the non-progressive left, who will ultimately go, we are getting shafted. And now we're about to get shafted more. I want my property. I want my power. I want some control of my life, of my kids, of my schools, of what I buy and where I buy it. I want some ownership here. I'm stepping back. I don't give you authority anymore. That's what will launch the Civil War, as I said. Sidebar, in the same area, there's a school in San Diego, Point Loma Nazarene University, Catholic school. Third time in a row, the student group trying to establish a Turning Point USA chapter was denied by the associated student body, the board of directors, which is the adults. They said it was over concerns that the student, Turning Point USA has a thing called the Professor Watch List. And it aims to, quote, expose and document professors who discriminate against conservative students. Well, you know, the head of vice president for communications and public affairs, Laura Fleming, said, no go. And even though the students said they wouldn't do it, no go. So it reminds me back decades ago when I was in college and I became student body president, I organized a student review board of professors because in my small private college, which was actually a religious school too, the students couldn't see what the other students said about professors. So you had these horrible professors who just kept doing a horrible job and you could word of mouth, but nobody could actually be like, here's what they did. Here's the students' take on them last year, last semester before. Well, look at over the last 4 years, every student, 90% of the students say they do all these horrible things. They're terrible. They can't speak straight. They're drunk in class, whatever it is. I'm just throwing things out there. Terrible, terrible, terrible. You couldn't say that. And man, the faculty, they were not happy when I tried to do that. They felt like it was a fundamental threat to their humanity. Well, that's this. I mean, they're saying, look, if you're going to say professors are targeting conservative students, we don't want you to have a watch list. Why not? Would you have a watch list for professors who targeted black people? Absolutely. How about, would you have a watch list for racist professors? You wouldn't have a problem with that, right? This is what I'm talking about. They also, you know, Turning Point has a thing about eliminating the wokeism. And the school says that's against their church parachurch policies. You know, these random things. Don't want to duplicate efforts our university is already doing to advance our own programming. This is what I'm talking about. Like, we're the institution. We're the institutional religion. It's like, go back to Christianity, Jesus, the Jews, and the temple. He's like, boom, we're in charge here. We're the guys. He kicked the tables over. It was like, you're a bunch of money changers, which started the whole stigma, by the way, and was like, no, you're not representative of what I think God is. So I'm looking at all this stuff like, what, you afraid of like someone else could come in and alter your faith-based how you control it? Like, meanwhile, the school has a break club, BREAK, which is for gender equality on campus. So privilege and gender justice. Again, what is gender justice? Privilege is recognizing you're white, you know, you're privileged. They have a Center for Justice and Reconciliation on immigration and racial justice. You can process injustices in your communities. Look, it's crazy to me. You got a Catholic school that's so woke that it's like literally got these groups. I have no problem with those groups, but won't let a Turning Point USA group in because they're theoretically even said we won't have a watch list for professors who target us, but no, we still don't believe you because we just don't really want you to form a group. One student talked about watching students and faculty, quote, who identify as Christian celebrating Charlie Kirk's death on campus and was troubled by it, you know. And she said, look, Charlie Kirk invited everyone to come on campus, open mic. We want to open that conversation up. Why are we afraid of this? Why is this school afraid of this? And, you know, like most conservative Christian students and just conservative in general, they tend to feel targeted on campus. You think they're all making it up? Literally, at some point, you got to recognize they're all making it up. Any more than most black people are making up that they feel there's a certain amount of racial bias against them, or black people in inner cities feel targeted by cops. Is everyone? No, but are they making it up on the whole? No, they obviously I've been there. I get it. There's a sense of like we're targeted, and there's a sense because to some extent you are. And then they did the thing that I hate the most. They said calling in question our decision not to endorse this Turning Point USA thing doesn't reflect how Christians are called to engage with one another in truth and grace. Meaning, if you question us, you're not operating in a way that's truth and grace. Does this sound familiar? If you question our COVID rules, you're not operating in a spirit of faith and goodness. I don't mean religious faith, but in the spirit of the well-being of the people. I mean, you're not operating in the spirit of it. The disagreement is a sign. This is like totalitarian type thinking. Disagreement is a sign that you are somehow fundamentally flawed and not honoring the process and respecting what disagreement should be necessary. Even in science, disagreement is key. This is where the civil war I'm talking about starts brewing. The mainstream, it's taking place even in faith organizations. 20 years ago, that school would have, it's a Christian school, it's never, and it might be Jesuit driven, but even then it would still probably lean more conservative on the faith side than liberal, politics aside. But this isn't going to be about politics anymore. I'm moving on. The Maha Summit at the Waldorf Astoria, Health and Services Secretary RFK Jr., they want to improve nutrition, eliminate toxins, preserve natural habitats, fight against the chronic disease epidemic. What is wrong with any of these things? Eliminate chronic disease. We see it happening. Natural habitats, toxins, improve nutrition. SNAP programs still give kids fast food. We got an obesity problem in America. I'll smoke a cigarette here and there. People be like, you're not healthy. Maybe it's not good for me, but I'm healthy. I'm 60 and I'm ripped. I'm like ripped. Look at those veins. I'm ripped. I'm healthy. I can outrun most 20-year-olds. I can outlift most 20-year-olds. I'm super healthy. But I'll see an obese person and see me smoke a cigarette and think like you're like killing yourself. I'm like, dude, look at yourself. You're dying right now. Diabetes wiping us all out. But Kennedy wants to take that on, and he took on environmental activism around clean water for decades, environmental justice, if you will, and they're after him because he doesn't think all vaccines are safe or that we fully tested them. Watch any news program and watch every other commercial is a pharmaceutical commercial. Like I'm literally like, we can solve everything now. Cancer, this, that, whatever. I'm not saying that all pharmaceuticals are bad by any means. I'm just saying it's literally the industry that's taken over. Weight loss, all of it. Again, I'm not knocking the inherent process of building pharmaceutical drugs to help us. I'm saying it is a captured industry that is out for profit, and it's captured the government. It's not to be trusted any more than you would trust the billionaire tech people that the left likes to rail on, or any other the oligarchs or whoever you want. You can't trust pharma to be on its best behavior. So, they have, again, like, do they vet vaccines? Sometimes. Did they vet COVID? Not the way they said. No. The mRNA vaccine, no way. Remember, they said it was good for pregnant women. They tested it, but they came out with it in 9 months. So how could you test it on pregnant women? Since your start to finish took you 9 months and a pregnancy takes 9 months, how could you need a couple of years to even get a basic test on pregnant women? They just lied. But Vance came out and said, Trump's sort of a bulldozer. And he said, Bobby Kennedy will get attacked. And he said, it's bullshit, excuse my language, because there's this attack where people say the conclusion is not supported by science or it's a conspiracy theory. And he says, and if you think about it, science is all about disagreement. You ought to argue against it. That's my whole point. Like, you ought to argue against things you don't agree with in science, in politics, in life. And they're always trying to silence people who speak outside the box. That's where this divide is going to happen. You challenge the orthodoxy of how our government works and the establishment. It's already getting challenged on both sides, but it will start getting more challenged as you see I think the democratic socialist movement start taking over more and more and literally kind of reorganizing federal government. Trump didn't so much reorganize it. He kind of chopping it back sort of toward the basics. And people call that totalitarian. To be honest, the left side will be even more totalitarian because it's literally controlling thought and what you can do and how you can spend your money. And remember, Vance came from Appalachia. Remember, that's hillbilly LG. And he knows it. The Appalachians got left behind. They got left in the dirt. Those people need help too. There's a lot of people in this country that need help. I'm not arguing that those who go, so many people in this country are losing ground. They are. So 60% of people paycheck to paycheck. It's a mess. Doesn't mean the solution is just to take everything over with the government. The government's part of why it's a mess. And there's other problems. It's not all the government. And I'm all for charitable deeds, but I'm also for going, hey, everything doesn't have to be charity. We can actually create wealth and value in communities that don't have it. That is a free market approach balanced with some support from outside that. We can do both. We can build. I'm not saying let boots pull you up by your bootstraps. I'm like, I used to always joke, yeah, boo, you don't have any bootstraps in certain communities. They need input. They need resources. They need investment. They need incentives. But that is different than just making everything free and just trying to tax the rich who then run away and the whole thing implodes. We've never seen it work anywhere in the world. That's all I'm saying. Running out of time, so I'm going to move ahead. I'm going to skip a few things that I was going to talk about. Bring that stuff up on Monday. Here's where I'm going to go with this. Here's where I'm going to end. Digital IDs, because this is going to be one of the culture flashpoints. Britain's requiring them for you to get a job. Apple's offering it on the new iPhone, and it looks really cool. You get a digital ID, and I get it. Makes it easier to figure out if legal immigration, ID, voter ID, healthcare, all kinds of efficiencies come with it, right? Getting on a plane. The problem is the globalists are for it. The UN, the World Economic Forum, the European Union, Britain, even China, because the problem is what you can do with that kind of control. First, it'll be voluntary. Although Britain's already making it, like you won't be eligible for work without it. That's not making it mandatory. There'll be rewards for taking it on, take the digital ID, and there'll be punishments for not. Just on the security level alone, imagine you get hacked. Now it's all centralized in one ID. You could theoretically get cyber hacked across the board. That's maybe the least issue for me. The amount of control it gives the government over you. I've said this about the CBDC thing, the central bank digital currency. Once you have that, the government can shut your finances off. You say the wrong thing, do the wrong thing, the credit score goes down. They can cut credits off for you to travel. They can cut your credit cards off. Same with a digital ID, right? Because they'll be able to track you. They'll be able to track your thoughts, your language, your behaviors across the board. And people have argued, well, nobody deserves anonymity, because that's what you would lose is anonymity. And Bitcoin, again, is an example where you get anonymity. And I would argue you do deserve anonymity. And by the way, not that everybody's a fan of our founding fathers, but a lot of people are. They all wrote these anonymous pamphlets. It's been a part of America and many societies, writing anonymously. Some of the greatest authors wrote their most famous books anonymously. We even saw it with, in the 90s with Bill Clinton, and the anonymous book, I mean, it was called Anonymous, right? It's like the notion of anonymity being a bad thing. Why? Why do I have to? Because why do I have to be logged in? I've already, people say, well, they're already tracking all your stuff, and you decline the cookies, whatever, you're being tracked. Yes and no. I mean, they are, but that doesn't mean I want more of it. And I love the idea of like being able to just take my phone and log into everything. Look at my scratched up phone case. Metal too, like I need a new one. Being able to just, kind of make it all easy. But once you give the government that control. So as I wrap this up, what I'm saying is we're coming back to my thing where I started, which is there will be those who recognize that the forfeiting of their way of life, of their control over their identity, over what they can spend, where they can spend it, over how things are priced and what stores are run by the government, and public transportation becoming, something that's free, everything's free, subsidized, all equality is being forced mushed together. That's the first layer. But then it starts becoming about what you're allowed to think and say and what's appropriate, which we already saw with the wokeism. And I'm not saying this will be a woke movement. The woke word is the wrong word, but it will be a control movement. It will be a thought. It will be the real version of totalitarianism, authoritarianism. In the name of the well-being of the people, Chairman Mao, the Russian Revolution, Lenin and Trotsky, Stalin, we're going to impose this on you. Mao is the best example in China. For the sake of all these people, we're going to impose control on everything. Literally caused a massive famine, destroyed the economy, and almost ruined it. China was just so big it survived. And now it's basically like, I always joke, China's a communist country with like a capitalist market machine running at the middle. It's coming, everybody. I mean, I'm out of time, but it's coming. The divide is happening. It's getting deeper. 2 major U.S. cities have just elected, quote, Democratic Socialists. And I'm not saying this like I'm a Sean Hannity, all like, the commies are coming. I'm saying they have a radical departure from what they think we should be. They have a good purpose in why they want to do it, but the way they'll do it will extort and destroy so much, and it will fail. And they come from backgrounds. I mean, at least some of the leaders in the world came from backgrounds that were like more underprivileged. Like Mao didn't grow up privileged. But these people are coming from privilege. And their supporters generally come from privilege. And it's a thought experiment that's going to explode. And all I'm saying is, as it starts to explode or implode and spread, you're going to see the movement going the other way. It's already there. It's not about Trump. It's not even about MAGA. It's about what's underlying that, what Trump represented, what MAGA represents, and it will spread to left and right in the middle. People who do not want to see, again, I'm not saying the way of life means everything the way we've done it is traditionally good. There is, as I've said, massive room for change, for improvement. We've got to do some things very differently. We have a massive economic inequality right now in this country. We have a class division that's unacceptable. But the solution is not what they're doing. And as that solution gets wider and more widespread, you will see the bifurcation I'm talking about. Don't want to be right, but I'm going to be. Sadly, I often always am. All right. Happy weekend, everybody. I'll see you on Monday.
Meet Rob Nelson, talk show host.
Because you got the 70s thing going there. I got someone's underwear.
Robert Kennedy, thanks for taking a minute. Simple question.
Tucker, it's good to see you. Listen,
If you're a Bitcoin maximalist, you're Bitcoin forever.
I hate this central